Marianne Williamson in the studio with me, and Marianne.com is your website. Marianne, it's
yes, Marianne.com.
Great having you with us.
Thank you.
I was just showing you a video, and my viewers and listeners are familiar with it because I've riffed on this a number of times, but if you go to YouTube and you type in large structures of the universe, there's a bunch of videos that were done by the Max Planck Institute and some by NASA and others, where they basically step back and look at the universe from, you know, 1 million light years back or something like that. And it looks like a giant brain. And the other thing that's amazing is that it is actually increasing in complexity continuously. You know, there's the stars being born. We've seen these things from NASA, from the Hubble Space Telescope and things. And I've always wondered, I started out with this weird train of thought, wondering why it was that 50,000 years ago we didn't develop sophisticated societies like we have now.
All right.
Why is that? And because our brains appear not to have changed much in about 100,000 years. And it occurred to me that maybe what was going on was that we are like TV sets, right? Our brains just resonate with something else. We're like TV sets. If you had a TV set and you turn it on right now, you'd get all these different channels. But if you took that TV set back 200 years ago and turned it on, there'd be nothing. So what if, as the universe gets more complex, the actual intelligence of the entire universe increases, and we're merely a reflection of that? And so we're getting more sophisticated, more intelligent, more intellectual. Yeah, there was another thing that got me thinking about this. Was about a year ago, there was this big kind of freak out in the scientific circles about how at some point, probably in the next decade, there will be a number of computers attached to the internet equal to the number of neurons in one human brain. And the internet may become self-aware and just kind of blink into, hello, Hal. You know. So could it be that the entire universe is all getting more intelligent at the same time, and that there's life forms all over the universe that are hitting the same? This is a very, very pre-Galileo, heliocentric worldview, right, or universe view, that everybody is just like us, or every life form. What do you think? Am I crazy here?
Well, I would never say you're crazy, but I would say that your description of your theory about what's going on presupposes that we're getting better over time. And I'm not sure that we are. I don't necessarily buy that we're so much more sophisticated. When you look at what we're doing to the Earth, when you look at what permanent war machinery, when you look at the state of humanity today, nuclear bombs and so forth, I'm not sure we're getting better, more sophisticated, more evolved, morally and spiritually. And you can even look at people in the past, whether it was Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Jefferson, et cetera, where there were people who lived a long time ago, from Shakespeare and so forth. Yes, we have some profound geniuses on the planet, but we had profound geniuses on the planet hundreds, possibly even thousands of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing about your theory. Yeah. And I also think that when you're talking about the quantum field, which is beyond time and beyond space, so beyond even the mortal drama of what any computer is doing, I think that which is and shall be always was. Because I think if you go high enough, you go into that pinpoint of God consciousness, or whatever we call it, right, where all that is possible was possible, and perhaps in some ways has been manifest either on the Earth or someplace in all these galaxies in what we would call earlier times, right, beyond anything we're getting to in future times. Since, as Einstein said, time and space are just illusions of consciousness anyway.
Right, they're constructs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay, you just converted me. That makes so much more sense. I had this is kind of a high school kid science fiction notion.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do think that there are ways in which a spiritual notion of the world is not less sophisticated, but always the most sophisticated, because it always takes us to that quantum field of there is no time and all those things. It really explodes everything even more.
It's just a movie. It's just a movie that we're watching, and that, yeah.
And actually, the Course in Miracles says something which is fascinating that I'm not sure I grok completely, that we're actually just remembering everything. That already happened.
Yeah.
And I can't go further with that because I don't totally get what that means, but it's when your brain tries to get it around that one, pretty profound as well.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all already happened.
Yeah. My friend Michael Hutchison had this profound enlightenment experience, and we would have these long phone conversations, and he said, it's working through us. He said it's all working through me or us, but it's not us. And it's like, just don't take it all that seriously.
Well, I think the reason we want to take ourselves lightly is because the world is so serious.
Yeah.
People who take themselves too seriously tend to not be the people taking seriously enough what's happening in this world today.
Yeah.
So that's why you want to keep yourself, not make it so much about your drama, so that you can have a greater appreciation for the whole drama.
Really well said.
And also we understand ourselves better.
Speaking of the whole drama, you stepped into one of the real dramas in America, which is the political drama. You ran for Congress in California, and made a pretty impressive dent in that.
Thank you.
And I hope that that's the beginning of many more. But I'm curious what you learned from that.
It was the most exhilarating experience of my life, but also the most brutal experience of my life. I'm not sorry I did it. And I was confirmed in my belief in really moving ways to me that people really do yearn for a deeper and more meaningful relationship with the public sphere. And that was really inspiring to me. It has seemed to me for a long time, and now more than ever, what conservatives do in this country, if they have strong beliefs, they prepare activists, they prepare organizations, they prepare citizen lobbyists and lobbyists, but they also prepare candidates and candidacies.
Right.
On the left side of the spectrum, among progressives, too often progressives prepare activists and prepare citizen lobbyists, but don't prepare candidacies. And I think, in my case, it was I saw and I continue to see money in politics as the cancer that underlies all these other cancers. Right. It is the great moral challenge, it seems to me, of our generation to get the money out of politics. The fact that I ran on that, it was interesting because there was another candidate who did win the primary who was already on the right side of the issue, but because of my candidacy, I think in many ways has been made to feel he has to make it more central.
Oh, good.
Than it was.
So you did what Bernie is hoping to do to the Democratic primary.
Exactly. And yes, and proud of it. And I think that's why more people who believe in people who watch you and listen to you, there's a very important role that those outside electoral politics play, such as yourself. But I think for many of us, we also need to realize, in addition to that, there's a limit to what you can do from the sidelines. We need people to actually run on these issues. This issue, if I'm preparing, maybe I'll do it later. This is not a time on the planet for any of us about anything to be thinking in terms of maybe in 5 years or maybe in 10 years. The hour is too late. Right. And so I hope more people will take the information from people like yourself and now just run on it. Just run on it. Right. Make it your campaign. Because the more people hear these ideas, on the platform, and that's what the platform of a candidacy does. You hear people when they're actually running for office in a little bit of an elevated way. A lot of these issues, such as you talk about every day, should be central to people's candidacies. People within the political system, run by the system as it is, the Democrat and Republican sort of alliance, which dominates according basically to their servitude to corporate interests, et cetera, they're not going to do it. The abolitionist movement didn't come from a major party. The women's suffragette movement didn't come from a major party. The civil rights movement didn't come from a major party. We need more people, both inside the parties but also outside, who just run, talk about these things, talk about them as passionately as you do here. And I think that will be a great contribution to the process.
And even if you don't win, you change the dialogue.
And which is a win in itself. Exactly.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Let's pick up some phone calls here. There are some specifically that are addressed to you. Maine. Is that Maine or Wayne in Chicago?
It's Maine.
Hey, Maine.
Maine, like the, yeah.
Yeah, like the state. Yeah, okay, you're on the air.
Okay. I was thinking about, a philosophy or ideology that progressives could have that of utilitarianism. It's the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Right now, the Republicans are using it for the greatest good for the least number of people. But in the definition in the dictionary, it's the greatest good for the greatest number of people. And I believe we got this philosophy or ideology for the progressive people, put them all under one banner so that we all know what everybody's talking about.
Okay. Let's get Marianne's thoughts on that, Maine. Thanks.
Well, Unitarianism does tend to have a profoundly progressive focus for the reasons that the caller said. Yeah. That, you go to a Unitarian church and you're going to get a whole lot of, whether it's anti-war activity or economic justice activity, and that's very cool about it. For those of us from a spiritual perspective, sometimes tend to feel a little underfed spiritually there. Mm-hmm. So its humanitarian focus is great. I wouldn't take anything away, but for me as a spiritual seeker, I kind of want a little more of the spiritual juice. I don't think we need one banner. Even the term one banner. Be careful with one banner when it comes to anything that has to do with spirituality. And isms. Unitarianism is cool for people who feel like being Unitarians. But their progressive focus politically, their humanitarian focus, of course, I celebrate as much as anybody does.
Yeah. It's and now it's the Unitarian Universalist Church. Right? These two churches have merged.
Correct.
And I remember 20 years ago or so giving a talk in a Unitarian church and mentioning God.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, really.
It was like I dropped a stink bomb.
Exactly what I meant, yeah.
So it's fascinating times. Marianne Williamson with us today, and we'll be taking some of your calls here in just a minute. We'll be back. It's 15 minutes before the hour on the Thom Hartmann Program.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And check out Marianne Williamson's site at marianne.com. You can track her down on Facebook quite easily, right? Just put Marianne Williamson in. Okay, we'll be back. And welcome back. Lane in Blairsville, Georgia, watching Free Speech TV. Hey, Lane, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's up?
Hey, well, you and your guest, Marianne, were talking about extinction, and I've just always thought that extinction, or the path to extinction, is how the Earth itself is going to cure global warming.
The Earth itself
is going to cure global warming. How the Earth is going to cure itself of the human infection that it has.
And so really, it's the path to extinction, because obviously you don't want to get to the point of total extinction. So depopulation then would be the term I would use.
Right.
The Earth is really in tune to what's going on, and it knows how to solve it. Now, that doesn't mean that we just go crazy and continue on the same path. But if we don't solve it, then the Earth is going to solve global warming.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Lane, thank you for the call.
I'd like, you know, there are many people who say with this kind of, what I find a little bit of a smug chuckle, oh, you know, the Earth will be fine. You just might have to throw us off for 250,000 years, much along the line of what the gentleman is saying. When you even allow yourself to imagine for a moment the immeasurable amount of human suffering that would accompany such a scenario, I think it becomes sort of morally intolerable. There are issues that we cannot control, obviously, but then there are issues we can control. And so for the part that has nothing to do with human behavior, of course, we can't do anything about that. But we know, you know, as you emphasize, the debate's over. There are so many ways that human behavior is causing these trajectories that would lead to the probability of extinction. The fact that, oh, well, you know, the Earth will be okay if we go that way, to me, as a woman, as a mother, no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's a good pushback. So how do we deal with the fact that there are 7+ billion of us, and we are now consuming more than 50% of the world's fresh water, more than 50% of the world's net photosynthetic productivity? There were only 1 billion of us when this country was founded.
Right.
There were only 2 billion of us when FDR was sworn in. There were only 3 billion of us when JFK was sworn in. There's now 7 billion of us. What do we do?
I don't know. You know, it's been a few years since Buckminster Fuller died, but one of his central themes was we could do this. I assume that he and those like him, if he were here today and others like him, you know, it goes back to a moral crisis, doesn't it? It goes back to the question of when is enough enough? It goes back to issues of territoriality. It goes back to issues of whether or not we want to live in a world where my win is at your expense. So when you say that, if we lived the way we live now, with everybody having as much as they want, basically, then probably the population, we could not handle it on this earth. But the shift, which I don't believe should come from government saying, but in the sense of sort of how we live with each other and what we emphasize and what we want to see have happen. You know, I remember when Mother Teresa said, we have greater poverty in the United States, you have greater poverty, she said, than we have in India. Because in India, she said, we do not have your spiritual poverty. She said, in India, I have seen a dying man share his last banana. In your country, she said to us, you have people with more bananas than they could ever count who will not share even one of their bananas with another human being. When those things are solved, then I believe that the other things will be solved.
Marianne Williamson, we'll be right back. It's 10 minutes before. Defending America from the weapons of mass deception. Thom Hartmann with you, and Marianne Williamson in the studio with us today. Pat in Traverse City, Michigan. You're on the air with Marianne.
Wow, what an honor to speak with two masters of knowledge. Marianne, I used to watch your ministry when you broadcasted out of Warren, Michigan. And my husband, I bought all your books, and he read them, and he read A Course in Miracles and Gary Renard's Disappearance of the Universe, and it completely changed him, just changed him for the better. I'm wondering if maybe you would consider coming back to Michigan because we're in such a mess and run for politics here.
Thanks, Pat.
Well,
Marianne, what's next?
Certainly not politics in Michigan. Yeah. I feel great love for my friends in Michigan and how kind people such as this caller was to me, and it will always be a part of my heart, always a part of my something very loving in me. My child had a happy childhood in Michigan, and that right there is huge. You know, when she thinks of coming home, she thinks of coming home to Michigan. In terms of living there, I don't know where I'll ever live, but I you know, politics in Michigan certainly doesn't seem where I'm going. I don't know about running for office ever again either. I think now it's time for me to download to other people who want to run. I've done these conferences called Sister Giant. I'll be doing another one in the spring. I hope people will make sure they're on the e-list on Marianne.com. We'd want to know about that, called Creating a New Politics, one candidate at a time. You learn as much from your failures as your successes in life.
So you're teaching people to be candid. This is the issue.
Listen, I learned from my failure. You know, you learn from failure and you learn from success. So I have so much information now to carry forward. Now, I didn't win my primary, so I can download this now. You know, I want to put it somewhere. I learned a lot of things, and I want to. Yes, I like I said, I think we need people to run on these issues, and I learned a lot of things that I could not have known had I not run. And I want to help other people by giving them whatever information I've gained.
That is great. That is great. Let's see here. Specific. Diane in Palm Springs, California. You wanted to talk about Christianity?
Hi, Tom. This is Diane. I want to commend you both, especially you, Mr. Hartmann, on your real success for how you show respect to all sorts of subjects. Mine is biblical. Today, the norm is anything goes. Today on the earth seems to be whatever is the norm. But if we go back to biblical truths,
Diane, if I could stop you there, what's your evidence that the norm is that anything goes?
Today is, maybe more specific would be better in that people's way of sliding off the road to integrity and how they interact with people it's almost total chaos. And of course,
I just respectfully, I have to disagree.
Actually, I think your caller has some point.
Okay.
I think in terms of our society, capitalism has lost its ethical center. Our government has lost its ethical center. Our media has lost its ethical center.
Okay.
And I think that there is a great breakdown in institutional integrity. And I think we are a conversation around character and ethics and integrity is something which we usually leave to the right. Like we're so afraid of the M word on the left. And I think that this, people will have a primal, I believe, in an instinctive understanding that these things matter. If we don't have the real conversation, they take the counterfeit version, whether it has to do with God, patriotism, or morality. Yeah. And so I believe that this is a conversation we should not be so loath to have. So what Diane, integrity and character means.
Diane, you're suggesting that we should return to biblical principles?
Well, thank you, Marianne, first of all. I'm a terrible speaker, and what I want to say sometimes doesn't always come out correct and probably too one way or the other, right or left, too far. Biblical history. Well, the point is education is one of our greatest sources of stability, and, of course, we're just inundated with information on the earth today. And so not everybody believes. It's wonderful that we all have this freedom of speech, and we can believe in religion, we can believe in politics, or combination. And
Diane, pardon my interrupting you, but we only have about 2 minutes left, and
okay.
If you could make your point.
The lesson in history teaches us that aside from Christianity, the Jews are a specific people that are, it has proven that there is a God. So from that standpoint of view,
okay. Diane, thank you for the call.
I think that I think sometimes there is a legitimate argument that some of us there are moral relativists. Yeah. And I think that is a very valid conversation. I think there is a level in which some things are right and some things are wrong. And sometimes there are gray areas and we can't really say. But the idea that there are no absolutes, I think the most intelligent mind does recognize that there are some...
well, I'm not suggesting there aren't
I'm not saying that you weren't. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that, but I don't think it has to be biblical. I don't think it has to be tied to a religion. I don't think that there are two religions versus others that have those.
This is where I think people it falls apart. Is particularly I've had people from the Heartland Institute. These people who are promoting the anti-Darwinism,
right?
And they say without religion there's no morality. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Morality precedes religion.
Mm-hmm. No.
Religion sort of borrows.
You see it in little children. You see it in babies.
Yes.
You know what? This was Ariana Huffington's little girl. Interestingly enough, when. I don't know if I can do it in 15 seconds, but it's a story about a little girl who when she won, couldn't bear winning because she realized the other person lost. And so she didn't want to, so she was throwing the game. She was like 4 years old, and I don't want to do that. Then she loses. It was so beautiful to see that.
It is. Marianne Williamson, Marianne.com. Check it out. Thank you, Marianne. Thanks for dropping by.